Hey guys, welcome back to Sack's Garage. I am Sack and this is my garage. Good news, we got our last two parts boxes in. We're gonna go ahead and open up, see what they are, and get them installed. Alright, so this is the first of the two boxes. I purposely have the non-label side here showing so that the box doesn't spoil it, because the brand is written all over the box and that would give away what part this is. So, we're gonna go ahead and open it. If you guys remember from last time, we started the two-step install. We couldn't finish it because part of the installation process is wiring it up to the truck and basically seeing if the wires are installed correctly. There's two options, and unfortunately the manual cannot tell you which one is the correct one, so that's awesome. Anyway, let's see if we can figure out how to get this box open. Good news is that it's very well packed. Looks like they might have used shipping staples. Possibly, yep, they did. You know those big, like, copper staples that they put in cardboard boxes. This box is pretty heavy. Hopefully that doesn't give away what we're doing here, but here we go. Got it open. I'm going to put away the knife just for safety so we don't cut ourselves. Got some foam, no big deal. Got some merch here that came with it. A little bag of hardware. We will throw that off to the side so we don't spoil it. More foam. Oh yeah, that's pretty. Take out some more foam here. Oh yeah. Alright, here we go. We got ourselves a Circle D. I believe I ordered a 2B. I honestly don't remember. I ordered what the tech said I should order. It's a 258 millimeter, and they even wrote my sponsor's name on the side of the converter, so that is super awesome. Oh yeah, right there it says 3B. So, ordered the 3B Circle D. Thank you to my sponsor, Auto Mafia Racing, for getting me a great deal on that converter. I always appreciate their help. Go check out their channel. They have the fastest stock sealed 3.7 Cyclone S197 Mustang in the world. Go check them out. Circle D Specialties. Awesome. Alright. That's the big exciting part. So, the 3B, what we are going for is a approximately 3,500 RPM stall. This is what they recommended, with being kind of a compromise between the being NA right now and the future plans of getting it turboed. So, it'll be a little too much converter, I think, right now, with it being NA, but once we get the power up, it should be just right. So, to go along with it, I'll just tell you guys what this is right now. This is a SFI approved flex plate from Performance Automatic. Again, thank you to my sponsor, Auto Mafia Racing, for getting me a great deal on this piece. SFI approved, comes with the sticker, so you can even put it there and let people know. We'll go ahead and put that on the transmission, which will be awesome. So, for those of you like me who aren't really into the automatic game, this is my first automatic performance car. I've always driven manuals. Basically, the flex plate is the equivalent of the flywheel on a clutched car. It attaches to the back of the crank, and then the torque converter bolts to it. So, it's not quite as heavy as a flywheel. It's actually pretty light, surprisingly. Most of the mass is actually in that torque converter, which will help keep up the rotational mass and the momentum there. So we will go ahead and start getting this installed, and see you in a bit. All right, now that the stuff's out, we can talk through what they sent. So in this nice envelope was the packing list with all my shipping info and whatnot. That's really nice. They've got this nice card that says, hey, installation tips are found at our website. Sent a koozie Can never have too many koozies for your favorite icy cold beverage. Our bag of hardware here has 4 bolts with washers and a thing of Loctite, which is really awesome, so that if you're not wanting to have a lot of Loctite sitting around, that's fine. And then 2 stickers for the truck, for the blank in my toolbox, or wherever else people put them on water bottles, laptops, whatever, that's fine. We also got our bag of hardware that came with our flex plate, as well as the sticker that says SFI approved. That way we are good to go. So let's go ahead and get this installed. All right, got the trans pulled off. That was pretty easy. Just about 10 13 millimeter bolts between the starter and the bell housing. It does have, interesting enough, a 2-piece, I don't actually know what these are called, basically the gasket between the trans. I think it's also called a flex plate, but I'm not entirely sure. But that's neither here nor there. So this is the stock converter. Nothing notable about it, but it's held on with 4 nuts. You can see one here. So I'll go ahead and get those off and see what we got underneath. Alright guys, so these nuts on here are pretty stubborn. They're 15 mil. I tried to do it with my trusty Pittsburgh Pro. These are from Harbor Freight. It was like 10 bucks for the set. It comes in 5 different sizes, but basically it's a swivel head here and then it ratchets up here. So it helps you get into really hard to reach places without having to reset the wrench all the time. But to get it, I didn't have enough torque on it, so what I'm doing here is the old wrench trick. I don't know if you guys can see that. So basically what you do is you put the rounded head on the part that you want to take off, and you take another wrench and slide it over on the direction that you want to pull it, and it basically increases your lever arm there. So it's basically a cheater bar, but you're using other wrenches. And then the there's too much pressure on the I guess rotational force on the flex plate here, so it's actually trying to turn it over. So what I have here is a breaker bar on the end to push the opposite direction, and we break it like that, take those off, and then we can remove with our ratcheting wrench from Harbor Freight, and that comes off super easy like that. So we'll go ahead and finish up the last couple bolts, and we'll keep going from there. All right, this last nut is already off. It's the only thing holding the converter still on the flex plate. So that is now right on the end. And it just drops, that's fine. We'll get that after we take the flex plate off, and this should just slide right out. Yep. Nice and heavy, smells like transmission fluid, as it should. And that completes that. So, there's the stock flex plate. It's pretty rusty. I've got the engine up on the hoist a little bit, so it's spinning. We'll release it. That was just so it didn't tip over. It's a little heavier on one side, so it's trying to roll on me. But we'll go ahead and take these 8 bolts out, get this flex plate off, and then start the process backwards to get it installed. All right, bolts are out. Let's go ahead and take this flex plate off. Cool. That's really nothing exciting under there. So we'll got some metal shavings down here, probably from all the grinding and welding and stuff we've done. That's fine. Won't interfere with what we're doing. Here's one of the nuts we dropped there, and that does that. We'll go ahead and start the process in reverse. All right, for the flex plate, the torque spec is 177 inch-pounds, which goes over to 15 foot-pounds. I only have a foot-pound torque wrench. and then after that you add 60 degrees. So with this pretty long torque wrench I have, it's not a lot of pressure. There we go, and there's the click. So we'll go ahead and get all 8 of these torqued up and add the 60 degrees. Alright guys, so the flex plate bolts are on, and now before we get the torque converter on, it recommends we add about a half quart of Mercon LV. So I've got a leftover jug here from when we first got the truck running, so we'll go ahead and pour that in here. And it says it might take a little bit. That right there was only maybe a fifth of a quart. It wasn't a whole bunch. It says it might take a couple minutes for it to get in there with the fins and everything, so we'll go ahead and get that in. Alright, got our fluid in, let it sit for a couple minutes. It looks like there might be a little bit of spillage, but that's okay, that's to be expected. We'll go ahead and try to minimize that. So the instructions say to put it on and spin it clockwise until it seats. There's already a little bit of grease on there, so it should slide right in for us. There we go. Got a little bit of spillage down there. That's okay. Come on. It's not, feels like it's not getting the last set of splines in. So we'll keep trying here. And first we'll get this mess cleaned up. Alright guys, we took it off, we reset it. Let's see if we can go ahead and get it to get the full seat. Ooh, there we go. That felt good. I think there it is. It's all the way in. That looks a lot better. Spin it here. Definitely got full engagement, and there's looks like about an inch between the edge of the bell housing and here. So what's next is you got to measure some gaps. So you got to measure the space from the edge of the converter here out to the face of the transmission bell housing, and then same thing from the back of the block mounting surface to the edge of the flywheel to make sure that the gaps are good. Alright, so this is the first of the 2 measurements. You basically measure from the front of the bell housing to the mounting surface of the torque converter. So I've got myself a 90-degree angle here, and measure between the mounting face and there. Make sure we don't push it out. And we're looking at about 0.95 inches. So we'll go ahead and measure the next one and see how it looks. Alright guys, now it's time for the second measurement. We're going to measure from the flex plate to the spacer of the engine block here. So we got our caliper zeroed out, and we'll make sure that we don't push out at all on our angle here. And we got 1.12. So if we go back and look, we'll see that the measurement from the transmission to this is greater. You actually want it opposite. You want this measurement here greater. But what we're not accounting for is the little lip here in the between the actual mounting surface of where the torque converter is going to be versus what we just measured here. So if we look here, it's actually an extra 3/8 of an inch. So we'll go ahead and do the math and see that our measurements are actually good. We are actually have the correct spacing, so we'll go ahead and proceed. Alright, now that we've verified our measurements, we got the trans lined up here, got it as level as we can be, so we'll go ahead and lift it on now. Alright, we got the first part of the converter into its slot, and basically now we just got to get the dowel pins lined up and get this bad boy slid on. There we go. Nice and happy. And you can see here that as we lift it up, it goes on, and it is now resting on the dowel pins. Perfect. That's exactly what we want, so we will go ahead now and get our bolts started. All right, guys, so we got it, the transmission bolted up, and on the 6R80 here, so the reason for it being a two-piece spacer is so that you can access the converter bolts down here. Anyway, I want to go through this process with you, spend a couple minutes talking through it, because it's definitely something that's important. You got to check they call it pullback, or just the spacing in the converter. Basically, the little bit of slop that it has between hitting the flex plate and hitting the back into the pump gears. So I've already done it. I've verified my spacing, but I just want to show you the procedure. So basically what you're going to want to do here is you thread in one of the converter bolts a couple turns and then push it all the way to the back as far as it'll go. So right now this is already in the out position, but basically what you do is you push the bolt in all the way so that the converter is against the back of the transmission, and then what you do is you finger tighten that bolt down until it hits the flex plate, and then what you do is you pull it back out with a pair of pliers or vice grips or whatever you have. I have these adjustable channel, it's not a channel lock per se, but it's a really great set of pliers built by Husky, where it's basically auto adjusting. It's kind of like a channel, yeah, it's like a channel lock, except it auto sets the width. Anyway, so what you do is you then pull that bolt back out, and then take something where you can measure between the flex plate and the head of the bolt. So what I did was I took a little piece of cardboard here, and basically with a razor blade kept trimming back as little by little until it got the correct spacing, and as you can see, the tip of that just barely fits in there nicely. And then what you do from there is you take your caliper here. So I got my digital caliper, zero it. Again, Harbor Freight special, but it works just fine. So what you do now is you then take your little piece of cardboard here, which is what I got, and then measure that like that. You don't want to pinch it since it's cardboard. That was actually a little too far in, about right there. And I get a 0.145. I don't know if you guys can read that or not, but that is my width. The what it calls for is 0.125 plus or minus 0.025, so I'm right on the edge of that 0.025 range, and basically what that gives us is the correct spacing. From the measurements earlier, what we actually saw was, when you do the math, it actually came out to 0.185. So you can see that 0.04 of an inch can make a huge difference, especially when you're talking about stuff like this where the tolerances are pretty low. I measured out the washers that they gave us, and those are 0.06. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, because we're still within the acceptable range, I'm not going to worry about putting the washers in, especially because it'd be a huge pain to try to get them up and under. This is the only access point we have to get those on. The only other way I could possibly think of doing it is some sort of tape system before sliding the transmission on, but that would just be way too hard. So what we're going to go ahead and do is get this one finger tight, spin it around, get all of the other 3 bolts in, and then we'll go ahead and torque them down to the 30 foot-pounds that it calls for. All right, guys, got those 4 bolts in and torqued down. Unfortunately, the torque wrench doesn't fit in, so I did the best I could just guessing with those Harbor Freight ratchet wrenches. Anyway, I have a couple bolts left to put on the transmission, get them torqued down, and get the starter installed. But other than that, it is ready to go back in the truck. Next video, we will get that back in the truck and get the switch wired up. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe if you like the content I'm putting out, or even just like the project. I would really appreciate it. It helps the YouTube algorithm, gets my channel out to more people so people can see these videos and see what we're up to. Until next time, guys, have a good one.